Bill.
Yes, sir.
When do you want to speak? Is that gonna be in,
Morning, Julia. Morning. How are you?
There's 10 minutes or 20 minutes or less.
but I can't guarantee the.
Yeah. this is
Are you good?
today.
Okay,
Well, we'll see.
well, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah?
As always. Thanks, offer. You just offered a co-op. Excuse me. I'll do that for me. Do they want to get their questions? Well, yeah, I agree. And you have more pull than I do. Bump me from the chair. Yeah.
You've been bumped. Yeah,
We didn't see your name.
she's got seniority.
Is you on that seat?
Oh, well, not on the seat though.
Gotta change it.
I'm
Let's
joking.
name flags.
I know.
Oh, really? Yes, why not? That's happened before.
And
Ken had said it. He said it, I think it just-
Oh.
Cliff knows that's not true.
Give you an agenda. I used to, where was I before? I used to hear it.
Well, if Mr. Surges was sit down, we'll be all set.
Oh, are you all set? I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. By the way, Mr. Deputy, I had to order a sample. We didn't know how long this.
You should have a taco truck outside.
Yeah, you know what? We did a Jimmy John's run. I can't.
I want roast beef.
A lot of rest, so you ought to be willing to.
He bought,
so that's okay.
Rejuvenated.
All right. I'd like to call the order, the special meeting of our King County Finance and Budget Committee on Thursday, May 18th at 11:31. Could we have roll call, please?
Over here.
Lewis,
Who was here?
Sanchez,
Hungry but present.
Surges,
Burgess here.
Tepe,
Here, thank you.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Furman,
Berman's here.
Pirog.
Here.
You have quorum?
Public comments. Do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
Oh, darn.
Nothing at this point in time. Under new business. Item A, a resolution approving and authorizing fiscal year 2024 budget policy, which we all have received. Is there a motion to approve?
Deputy moves.
Deputy moves,
Lewis a second.
Lewis second. Discussion. I know that our state's attorney was interested in comments as representative here.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Frank. I am the new chief of civil. Given the fact that this is my first week, I will defer questions and comment on behalf of the state's attorney with Ms. Brady here. But I wanted to at least, at the very least, introduce myself, kind of put a face to a name, and basically let you know I'm here. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me and stuff like that.
Thank you very much. And welcome, John.
Good morning. Erin Brady on behalf of the State's Attorney's Office. Assistant State's Attorney Stephen Ford sent a memo yesterday on behalf of the State's Attorney. Our office had been asked to comment on the proposed policies with the limited instruction that we comment only on the internal control implications of these proposed policies, and we have done that by way of that memo. If there are any specific questions that anyone on the committee has, I'm happy to address and explain any of those items. We do have concerns that what is being proposed today would not hold up as far as an internal control analysis is concerned with any of the elected officials who are given that internal control by statute.
Any questions or? Yes, Ms. Lewis?
So I do have a question. I read this all last night. So the
second one, which is like a marked up one, did you guys mark that up or did someone else?
We received a marked up copy. Our office did.
Okay,
The origination of that, I would have to defer to either Mr. Shepro or somebody else who prepared that document.
okay, because I was wondering if the marked up was in answer to the things that the
You're right.
attorney's office thought was incorrect.
Shepro,
But-
are you referring to the color coded changes?
Well, mine's not color coded, it's just, mine is just marked up. Yeah, it's lined out.
My understanding is that various board members and staff, not state's attorneys, looked at it and that reflected the changes or deletions from those individuals that reviewed it, but not the state's attorney's office.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay.
Ms. Juby?
So because we seem to have several different things that we were given, is it possible for us to have a copy of what we're actually going to be talking about? I have 3 things that were sent by the state's attorney. I have several things that were sent by Ms. Wagoner, and I just want to make sure that we're all dealing with the same documents. Because if we have a marked up copy, then that's clearly not the copy that we should be talking about. Or is it the copy we should be talking about?
Well, I would think we'd be talking about the resolution, temporary 23-740. Be what we're discussing unless somebody modifications
Well-
to that.
Which one? 23-741?
Of the authorization for approval of a formal budget policy for fiscal year 2024.
The 2 versions that were sent to you and were posted outside the agenda packet are the resolutions. Those are the versions. The state's attorney's response from yesterday, I think, was sent directly to you. I'm not sure what was in there. but-
Yes.
And if I might, Ms. Juby, for clarity, what might be helpful, and Ms. Lewis, the marked up versions were sent along with the memorandum to make clear what was given to our office for review. So I apologize for any confusion that may have caused.
It's okay. I
No,
just
it's
want to
fine.
make sure that when we're talking about something that has such
I believe.
ramifications, that we're all dealing with the same document.
I believe the 2 documents were the same, except that the one out the color coded or the markups simply had eliminated the color from the highlighting from the document.
So we're discussing 740.
That's what's on our agenda.
Well, we have 741 as well.
No,
Go one at a
So that's the next one is.
Right, so I'm just asking for clarification so that I know which one we're discussing right now.
right now we're discussing
740?
the budget policy.
There was a motion and a second, I believe, that was made for item 4A. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman.
The motion,
4A.
motion on the floor was for 4A.
4A, yes.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Leonard.
Oh, yes, Ms. Juby, I believe we have 2 resolutions. The first one is 23-740,
Right.
Right,
and that's one we're discussing.
okay.
So
But one is a budget policy, the other is a budget policy on vacant positions.
Oh, sorry. Is it 23-740 and 741 are the 2?
We're doing
Yeah.
40 now and then
right.
41 next.
Right. I'm trying to find my electronic version of that. Do we have an extra copy of that sitting around?
Erica Wagner sent it out
I just.
I do not.
yesterday at 10:31 a.m.
We have another copy brought downstairs.
Bill, my email from that has 3 items.
It's the
2 of the
second
one
Second one,
is the second one.
that's 740, and then the third one is 741.
Okay, got it. Got it. I do.
Go ahead, couple paper copies.
All right, any other questions of,
I just have a comment.
Melissa?
So from my opinion, and just having read this, because we have these state's attorney's opinions and then we have our policies, I don't think, I mean, I can't vote yes on this. Seems like there's too many things that we still need to discuss further.
Well, whatever we pass or whatever we vote on certainly can be changed at a later time. So
I don't think it's that, well, for me at least, I'll be voting no. It's not prudent to me to, to put something in front of my face with all these write-ups and things and even the confusion amongst us of which documents we're actually voting on. So I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Chairman Berman. I think the intention overall is to have something before the county board, the next county board, so that we have some kind of guiding governance documents going into our budget season. For that reason, I'm in favor of forwarding this resolution on, no matter where we land today, no matter if we agree or disagree on any of the points, just in the interest of keeping it moving. We have time in between meetings where work can get done to answer questions and get all of our concerns addressed. And I think over the next 2 weeks, we can accomplish that goal. Obviously, we have opinions from the state's attorneys that are in the state's attorney's office that is, I don't know if it's contradicting what is in the policies, but it is advising us against certain items that are in that. We received the actual policies and the state's attorney's opinion less than 24 hours ago. I myself haven't even had a chance to digest the policies themselves. I think there are a lot of questions that members here have and concerns members here have regarding what's in these policies. I would be in favor of forwarding this on today, whatever conversation anybody wants to have. I'm not trying to rush anybody out of here in my suggestion, but I would be in favor of forwarding this on today. And in the next week, we log all of the problems as people may see them, or questions, concerns that they have. We create a log of all those questions and concerns, and then we forward that on to the state's attorney's office and to finance and whoever else might get us those answers the following week, so that by executive committee, we'll have everyone's input in whatever resolutions go forward to executive. We could then maybe still have conversations about what we would like to change, disagreements we have, but in the next 2 weeks, I see that we can really get a lot of work done, so that we're not trying to figure this all out in open session in committee without even having 24 hours worth of time to look over it. So that would just be my recommendation personally, is that we do that. If someone needs to volunteer to log all of everyone's problems and questions, I'm happy to do that. We have email system that's very efficient. So I think that can get done, but that's my suggestion. And I will be voting yes on this no matter what we do to it today to forward it along.
Thank you, Ms. Molina.
Hi, thank you, Chairman Berman. I was just asking the question of, we have a presentation from our finance department. I see there was a PowerPoint attached. I'd like to hear that presentation if possible.
Thank you. And that's our next item. Ralph, would you like to speak?
Certainly. Good morning. Well, I think it's still morning anyway. I have not gone to bed last night because I just did tons and tons and tons of research because of receiving the state's attorney's opinion so late in the day. And so I have put together a PowerPoint to address some of the questions you may be already asking yourself. My PowerPoint slides aren't very many, but they're all addressed on state statute to the individual elected officials. And they address the internal control question that we keep hearing about. And so if I'm allowed to, I'd like to just take maybe 10 minutes to go through it quickly. Do you want to hear about the formal budget process first, or do you want to hear about the opinion first?
Well, I'd like to hear the formal budget process first.
Okay.
Very good.
So, have the clicker. Okay. we've kept this really light and easy. Again, some of this you've seen before. A formal budget policy really accomplishes a realistic, measurable, and quantifiable goals for an organization, which then becomes a true tool for this board to be able to use all through the year in measuring the outcomes of how each department is doing. And is the ship really headed in the direction you were all thinking you wanted it to go? It also establishes a budget that hopefully will reduce some overinflated budgets that I have personally seen in my short time here. And if you can reduce some overinflation, it makes it much easier not to have to rely on your reserves to balance a budget. And at the very beginning, I was told or asked to please balance the budget without using the reserve. So those are the marching steps I'm walking forward with at this point in time. And so just quickly, I just want to reiterate the understanding of roles in the budget development, because you as a county board, and again, I am so passionate about this, so please forgive me if I get a little overwhelmed, but you, every single board member, you're responsible for every single dollar that's spent in this organization. Even though you've appropriated that budget to appointed and elected officials, you're still the end responsible person for how that money was spent, regardless of internal controls, regardless of anything, because you gave the money, you gave the budget, so you are truly responsible for everything that is spent. And one of the best ways to help put a curve on the use of your reserves, and reserves are meant to be used typically for one-time expenditures, emergencies that come up, something that none of us would have ever thought to budget for. And so hopefully a good budget policy will eliminate a ton of mid-year adjustments. The last couple of meetings I've attended, you all get lots of resolutions asking to adjust your budget. And that's a great way to have the budget go out of control, because it just keeps growing and it keeps growing. And so hopefully with the approval of a formal budget process, we will start to see that declining. And last but not least, communication is so extremely important, not only between the board and departments, but between the board members themselves. And so I know the saying there's a little corny, but to be informed by each other and to really have discussions over concerns you may have and what any of us are doing around that budget is extremely important. We all learn from talking to one another because we all have different opinions, we all have different ideas, but if we don't share them, it doesn't go anywhere and we're not helping anything. So I strongly would urge great communication between the board members. And then the second bullet there is county board and elected offices and appointed department heads. Yes, elected officials have internal control. There's no doubt about that. Nobody, I think, here has really questioned that. The budget policy does not interfere with internal control, which we will talk about in a little bit. But internal control does not kick in until you as a board do that final approval of the appropriation ordinance. At that point, you have now turned the budget over to the departments and the elected officials. It's at that point that the internal control kicks in for the elected offices. State statutes, budget development is under the control of the county board, and that's clearly stated, not only under the county code, but in each of the elected officials' office statutes, which you'll see shortly. And so the county board does have, in my opinion, only a lot more authority than it's maybe led to believe. And again, I would strongly encourage all department heads, or excuse me, you can tell I'm tired, all board members to really take an active role in the development of policies and procedures, because this is you protecting yourselves. And somebody's got to be the parent. Someone's got to give the direction, because without direction, we all kind of flounder. And so I just want to make sure you understand what an important role this really is you're all taking on. And so I do have a saying up there that I thought was really hit home to me, and that is, become the kind of leader that people would follow voluntarily, even if you had no title or position. And I really believe it's a representation. You've got that following, or you wouldn't have been elected to serve on the county board. But we got to keep enhancing that and keep growing it, because people are putting your faith in that you're representing what they're really wanting done. So this is just kind of to build up, making you strong budgeteers. Be proud of playing a powerful role in controlling the spending of taxpayer dollars. Knowledge is power, and that's one of my favorite sayings. If you come visit me, you're going to hear that a lot. And understanding the challenges of each office and departments, what they're facing currently, what they're going to be facing in the future is extremely, extremely important. So there's got to be, I would encourage more involvement, because right now, I get the feeling a lot of what's being handled is done through crisis management, or you wouldn't have so many budget adjustments. And you never want to rule by crisis management. That's not a place you really want to be at. You want to be able to thoughtfully respond to things as they're coming up instead of putting out fires. And so I do encourage, and maybe you all have, I don't have history, so I'm maybe blowing smoke here, but I would encourage that you do take time to visit the departments, that you do take time to really learn what their functions are and what it takes to record a deed or to issue a vital record, or, it's not always as simple as we all want to believe. And so again, knowledge is power, and I believe that would be a great way for all of us to get on the same page. The county board, in my opinion here, has given departments and elected offices a great opportunity by being involved with the budget development for their departments. I really do believe that, because as you read the last point there, the county board per state statute could say, Ralph, come up with a budget for all the departments, make sure it's as close as what we believe their needs are. We don't need any of their input, just do it. You guys aren't doing that. You're really allowing everybody to participate in it, allowing them to express their concerns, their needs, what's coming at us in the future. Again, knowledge is power, and that gives us that knowledge. The willingness to allow open conversation around budgets with department head and elected officials clearly show your commitment in wanting to be fair and have a level playing field for all departments in your budget. And last but not least, and sometimes we all forget about this, budget is not an edict to spend. And it should not be looked upon with the old adage that's been so popular at the federal level, at the state level, and even at our local levels, that if you don't spend it, you won't get it back. And that's a statement we all need to work on changing, because that's what part of the reserves are for, is to be able to handle those unplanned for expenses that may arise during the year. And so it takes a commitment on both sides of the table. If we get departments to really tighten budgets, you as a county board, are you going to stand up and be there when they really need something? So that it doesn't become a fight or a struggle, but that there's an understanding. And that keeps everybody informed. It makes it truly a team playing situation instead of, well, we got to have it in the budget now. We got to have it in the budget now, because if we don't, we're not going to get it. And that's a horrible way to work a budget, in my opinion. It never really truly works very well. So budget is one of the most challenging tasks you as a county board are faced with. Because you know there are several needs out there. You know there are several things we want to get done. It is every department heads and elected offices, and excuse me if I forget to say elected offices, where I came from, it was just department heads and everybody was kind of in there. So I'm not trying to be offensive to the elected offices, but you need to be able to understand what they're doing, but you also have to be aware that, yes, there are needs they need, and then there are wants they need, and we have to be able to distinguish the difference if we're going to balance a budget based on revenues versus expenditures and not revenues plus reserves plus equals expenditures, because the last thing you want to do is get those reserves drawing down. The economy, we're doing fine right now, but I don't know if you listen to the news, sometimes it can get a little, ooh, you know, banks closing. Yes, there are reasons those banks have closed, but still it's just, and I think now's the time to become more prudent. Protect yourself. I know you have lots of needs here, and the best way to address them is by cutting where we can now. I am not a person who would ever promote a flat, well, everybody's going to give 6% of their budget back. That's not a fair thing to do, because your smaller departments may not have 6% to give back. I think it needs to be addressed on a per department basis. Hopefully we're not there yet. Hopefully we will be able to balance this budget without reserves. But you know, what you don't want to do is come up with a quick resolve. You want to make sure whatever you decide to do has really been thought out and has really been looked at to the effects of the departments across the board and the services you're providing your taxpayers. So again, I'm a strong believer in that, and I do thank you, even though I'm not a constituent of Kane County. I do thank you, because I don't envy the position you're in. And I give you lots of credit to think that you're willing to do that kind of civic duty. I really do. But again, what I would like the board to start thinking about is that you are strong as a unit. All 24 of you put together can be very, very strong in accomplishing and conquering anything that comes forward. You're wise, or you wouldn't be here. Use that wisdom that you bring with you. It may be different from who you're sitting next to, but in combination, that's how we learn to think outside the box. That wisdom is so important. You're leaders, or you wouldn't be sitting here. But we don't want to get dormant in our leadership. We got to stay active, because again, this is a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. Again, knowledge is power, so keep yourself informed. Even if you're not sitting on a committee that's passing a policy, take the time to read that policy. Really try to grasp what is being asked for. The stronger you are in that, the easier decisions will be when you have to make them. And I know you're all here, you're all very proud of serving Kane County, as well as you should be. I've been very proud of, I've been here 4 weeks, and just seeing what you guys have accomplished, it blows my socks off. And so all of us are here to represent the taxpayers and their needs. And it is taxpayer dollars. We can never forget that. Because, you know, real estate taxes keep growing. I understand that. We need that. That's a main source of revenue for all of us. But that doesn't mean we can't be prudent and really more focused on what needs to be done and what maybe could be delayed for a little bit. And last but not least, you are Kane County budgeteers. And as we move forward in this challenge, and this year will be a challenge if the formal budget process gets approved, because it is different and change is hard. I've been around long enough to know there's always a fear around change. What does it really mean? What am I giving up? What are they taking away? And so it's going to make it a little more difficult this year until we get through it 1 year. And then when everybody sees nothing really drastically is changing, it's just the roles are shifting a little bit. And so I liked the 3 pediments. I know they're a little hard to read, but they represent what you as a board really have to do and are doing. So with that, if you have any questions about the budget policy, Erica or myself, or even Jamie has played a role in some of it, would be more than welcome to take your questions or concerns. I do have another presentation that's small, just about addressing some of the things that were raised by the state's attorney in their policy review.
So, Mr. Chair,
Julie?
I appreciate everything you've said. I appreciate not using reserves for things that are not one-time expenditures. That I was shocked that we did that to balance our budget. I don't like budget adjustments. I don't like emergency purchases. I don't like any of that. That's not a surprise. For the whole, I think it's a sound policy that you've presented. However, I have some fundamental issues with how we're dealing with electeds and their vacant positions, and how we're dealing with county board approved positions that are going to be applied to departments outside of what I consider our purview. I think that I understand we control the budget, and I understand that they have internal controls, and I think that it's a complete overstep of our authority to tell them how to spend their money. And I understand you're going to be presenting something that will be different, and it's not. I would be very surprised if that changed my belief that we are overstepping. Now, if there was some way to break them out of this policy, and this was how Kane County dealt with their positions, I would be fine with that, because I think that we do have the authority to okay positions, and we do have the authority to create. But I have seen nothing that says any type of a deep dive on why some of these positions are still open. I haven't seen our outside equity report yet. I haven't seen any of the departments say why they believe their jobs are still open. Is it just because we pay poorly? Is it because we don't have enough applicants? I haven't seen any of that, and all that data depends on how I'm going to decide on this vacant position.
And I understand that very much, but if I may respond.
Of course.
Part of that's what this policy is meant to do. Right now, none of us know what's out there vacant. None of us know how long it's been vacant. We're trying to work very diligently on wrapping that up and closing that. But you know, when you have positions open for 9 years that haven't been filled and we keep budgeting for them, there's something wrong. That money isn't being used for what it was meant to be used for, in good faith that the county board gave it to the department for. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a system that allows us, if you read that policy really close, it does not eliminate
I'm aware.
the positions.
Have
All
rules.
it does is say, keep us informed.
Which is what I have a problem with, because we're asking an elected official to come back after 90 days and justify why they should hold that position open. And I don't think that is our right. And it's an opinion of mine, but
Sure,
it's
and
it's
I'm
how
not
I have
trying
to
to-
vote off of the information that I have available to me. And I believe this is putting the cart before the horse.
Well, we have information that addresses that. If you're,
that's
if
great.
you're wanting to see that, I mean,
great.
that is what I spent time with, because if we go to the next presentation, who does that? So this is the copy that was referenced for the Attorney General opinion. I don't know if any of you've taken the time to look it up and read it. It's all available on the web. But it isn't apples to apples in their opinion. This is stating, this is a case that was brought about and the Attorney General is opining on it, that Grundy County was trying to tell an elected official how to spend a line item in their budget. Our budget policy does not even suggest that's going to happen. There's nothing around it. So I'm not quite sure why they're opining using this opinion. I know when I was at McHenry County and we were making changes there, this opinion kept popping up, and the state's attorney had hired another attorney to represent them during this process. And they're like, they kicked that right out because the budget policy didn't address it. We're not saying we're going to tell you how you're going to spend your office supply budget. We're not telling you how you're going to spend your equipment budget. We're just saying we're giving you budget. These are the guidelines that we're following. We're not stepping over and trying to direct anybody in how they're spending anything. And so that's really, I'm sorry, I flunked coloring in kindergarten. As you can see, I'm not very good with a highlighter. But that's just trying to tell you, if you read that opinion, that's what this opinion is all based on. And Grundy County was overstepping their boundaries by telling an elected office how they could spend that money. There's nothing in the budget policy that gives the county board or any other department the authority to do that. Absolutely nothing. If we go to the next page. Read it, but hopefully I have it. This policy that they're stating, this opinion from the Attorney General, clearly states that the county board has sought, this is explaining why they're opining, that the county board of Grundy County had tried to control the expenditures from line items for, and this is really important to pay attention to right now, because I believe what we think is internal control is different than maybe what the state statutes are really trying to tell you. Because if you look here, it says line items for equipment, materials, and commodities. Nowhere does it talk about personnel. So I really think the internal control, and as we go into the statutes themselves, that is what's brought up constantly. Personnel is handled up here in the statute. And then as you come down, all of a sudden it's talking about internal control over equipment, contractual services, and commodities. It doesn't include personnel. Though, as we go through some of their individual statutes, it says that they have the right to hire who they want to hire. We're not trying to stop that, but they can only pay. We can't determine for them what they're going to pay their people, but they have to stay within the confines of the budget the county board has given them for personnel. And that's clearly stated in every single statute you're going to see here for the elected offices. And here again, even here, it's saying the county board is authorized to exercise extensive powers relating to the county's fiscal, financial, and budgetary management, specifically following the county code, which is state law that has not been repealed. Now, I do have to make a clarification here because I spent probably an hour and a half on the Attorney General's webpage last night. But it's only updated through 2009. I would highly recommend when you replace your executive officer for finance, that they be given a subscription to Westlaw or one of those online legal services so that they could do further research. It's much easier. I know I had it at McHenry County. And so you, as a county board, per law, are authorized to manage the county's funds and the county business. And that's coming right out of the opinion they were quoting on why you can't. Here, all this highlighted is coming right out of state statute, and this is what the Attorney General is including in the opinion. You have all this authority. And you've all seen this in what I've handed out before. And then if we go down, it talks about the contents of an annual budget. I don't think in the past you guys included, it states that the budget must contain, if there's going to be any kind of outside pay, as in bonuses or stipends, or that all has to be presented in the budget document. So we have to know about it up front. It's not, it has, we can do it, and if we're following the law, it says we have to have it up front. So here it's stating that the county, the state's attorney, the county auditor, the recorder, the county clerk, the treasurer, they all are considered internal control departments. And I just have a really quick question here. Can we do a quick quiz? 2 minutes, I promise. How many people really know what offices are state statutory offices at a county level? Yeah, Ken, I figured you would.
Shepro doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Are three mandatory offices that you as a county board cannot eliminate through referendum. They are the sheriff, the county clerk, and the county treasurer. All the other elected officials could be eliminated if you decided to put forward a referendum asking to eliminate those departments. I'm not suggesting you do that. In the, what I found out last night is they're not considered a statutory, they're not protected. When I was reading through the Constitution of the state of Illinois and I did both. I did a lot of reading last night. And so again, I'm not suggesting you get rid of any offices. I'm just wanting to make sure you understand where authorities lie. That's all I'm really trying to do here. And so. No, it has to be done through referendum.
All right, Madam Chair.
Point of order, any questions? Could you please direct those to the chair so we can all hear? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, continue, Al.
So basically, what this opinion from the Attorney General is saying is it's all in response to Grundy County trying to control expenditures from individual line items in these internal control offices. And I totally agree with his opinion. That's not what the board should be doing. It's not allowed. But again, the policy that we're presenting does not give that authority to anybody. The policy stays at a much higher level. It doesn't get into those weeds. So I want to make sure you understand that there's that protection for those internal control offices. And so I'm going to be the first one as we now get into some of these state statutes to, I'm going to be very honest with you. When I'm going through this is no attack on the state's attorney. I'm just doing a rebuttal. I think they're a very professional office. I think they've done wonders for your citizens in Kane County, and I would hope Ms. Mosler and Aaron and the new civil assistant or director or, sorry, do not take it. I'm just representing and trying to make sure you have a clear picture of policy. And so with that said, the second thing I want to say is I'll be the first one to admit I cannot use a JD after my name. I'm not a trained, educated attorney. I don't profess to be. So I'm just reading and looking at what I'm seeing, not saying it's right, but I'm just pulling attention to it. I do have the authority to use CPA after my name. When I took the CPA exam several years ago, I was still writing my dinosaur. There was one section, 4 hours of business law that we had to address in the test. And so I have some familiarity with business law, but again, I'm not an attorney and I confess that. And I want you all to know that. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I've been asked to point out that to the extent that our director is giving a legal interpretation, he's really not allowed to do that. That's legal advice. And while he's certainly entitled to an opinion, I don't believe that it is appropriate for him to be stating what is in effect his legal opinion in contravention to the state's attorney's.
I think he specified that it's
Opinion.
his opinion,
Yeah.
and I think we can go with that.
I'm not suggesting any legal opinion. What I'm telling you is I can't give a legal opinion because I'm not an educated attorney. But I can show what the statutes show. And it's up to you guys to make the decision. I'm not here to pro it or con it. I'm here to do whatever you decide in the end you want to do. So with that said, if we now go to the first statute for, I'm not sure which elected official goes first. Can they make it just a little? So this is the county clerk's statute that controls their authorities. As you can see, I've highlighted for you internal operations of the office. The county clerk shall have the right to control the internal operations of the clerk's office and to read that necessarily, you can procure necessarily, your equipment, your materials, your contractual services. And then if we go down a little bit further, it talks about the county clerk has the right to appoint the deputies, the county clerk deputies. But here, compensation of deputies employees, compensation of deputies employees shall be fixed by the county clerk. No one's disagreeing with that. Subject to budgetary limitations established by the county board. So the county board sets that budget. It's what it's saying. I'm not voicing an opinion. You can all create your own opinion, but I think that's black and white. And then if we can move on. The coroner, the county coroner shall control the internal operations of his office, subject to the applicable county appropriations ordinance. The coroner again shall procure necessary equipment, materials, and supplies. Nowhere do you see in their personnel, it's constantly these three things all across all the state statutes. And so that's where I'm thinking the state is trying to say that's where the internal control really lies with budget. But again, I'm not giving an opinion.
I guess I would have to disagree. I mean, when you're stating Sorry, Mr. Shepro. When you are stating your view, I mean, it is an opinion. And I don't mean to get down into semantics, but if you are stating something contrary to what the state's attorney has indicated, then that is an opinion.
Mr. Shepard, I think
Yeah.
what Ralph is trying to do is he's reading from the state statutes as to what we have control over and what we don't have control over. I don't think he's putting any of his own opinion in here. He's reading. And so therefore, I think we should let him continue on with it.
Okay.
You may disagree with it,
he's-
but that's
he's-
fine.
Mr. Chairman, he's not just reading the statute, he is telling you what he thinks it means.
Okay.
But, okay, I've said what I said.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm only gonna eat.
Continue. Please.
Okay, and so if we go to the next one, now the county coroner by state statute is required to use central purchasing. I don't know if the county enforces that or not, and that's none of my business. The recorder, again, it reads, shall have the right to control the internal operations of his, her office, to procure the necessary equipment, materials, and services to perform the duties of his office. If you go down a little further. And under compensation of duties and employees, deputies and employees, I'm sorry. Compensation of the deputies and employees shall be fixed by the recorder. No one's fighting that in the budget policy. Subject to budgetary limitations established by the county board. Now we're into the sheriff's statute. And here deputies, each sheriff may appoint one or more deputies not exceeding the number allowed by the county board for his or her county. And here the sheriff of any county in Illinois, with the advice and consent of the county board, can appoint auxiliary deputies, again, up to a number the county board has established. Court security officers, the sheriff of any one county in Illinois with less than 3 million inhabitants may hire court security officers in such number as the county board shall deem necessary from time to time. Here, counties under 1 million control of the internal operations. In counties of less than 1 million population, the sheriff shall control the internal operations of his office, subject to the applicable county appropriations ordinance. I don't know if Kane County has a supervisor of safety. The statute does address that. That is totally really the salary can be set by the county board to establish that position. Here, again, the sheriff with the approval of the county board can enter into intergovernmental agreements and cooperation agreements. And here, again, the sheriff, with the consent of the county board, can enter into agreements with the state correction system. Now we're into the treasurers. Again, internal operations of the office. The treasurer shall control the internal operations of his office and is procure the necessary equipment, materials, and services to perform the duties of his office. Compensation for deputies and employees. He's allowed to set the compensation, but he cannot, again, it's subject to the budgetary limitations established by the county board. Here we now are into the state's attorney statute. And as highlighted, except as provided in section 4-2001, which we can look at if you want, it's just above it. Where assistant state's attorneys are required in any county, the number of such assistants shall be determined by the county board. And the salaries of such assistants shall be fixed by the state's attorney, subject to budgetary limitations established by the county board. And so all these statutes, that's the last one, are very consistent around personnel. Yes, they give the elected official the right to establish the rate of pay, but they have to stay within the confines of the budget the county board has issued. And so hopefully that has answered some of your questions around where internal control is really lying. It's a very hard question. It's a question that gets asked all the time. There is no one state statute that addresses internal control. It's only in these individual elected offices that have internal control in their statutes that it's mentioned. And I think that's why it causes a lot of conflict, because there is not one really strict, this is the law, this is what everybody's got to follow. But as you can see, they're basically very consistent in each statute. And with that, are there any questions?
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask a question of ASA Brady. And that question is, of these different factors that were just stated by Ralph, do you agree that those are state mandated, or do you disagree that they're not accurate? I mean, I guess I want your legal opinion on those.
Right. So I am in a difficult position where I feel like I must acknowledge and give deference to Mr. Sarbaugh's experience in county government, but respectfully separate out the legal analysis of the state's attorney's office, which is done with the benefit of the education of, a legal process and the understanding and ability to synthesize and process both the statutes and the legal opinions and the attorney general opinions and the court cases interpreting those items. I agree that he has accurately identified portions of the internal control statutes throughout the county's code for this committee. However, I must, and I can't emphasize this strongly enough, disabuse the idea that some of these disabuse the committee of the idea that some of these items in this policy do not infringe upon internal control. There is no question in my mind that they do, simply because some of the Attorney General's office, Mr. Sarbaugh chose to cite, are factually distinguishable, does not mean that the same principles don't apply with respect to the county board's both authority and duty to fund offices with internal control in good faith. And also acknowledge and separate itself from the idea that the elected officials really do have this very distinct and separate authority to regulate things like which positions are available within my office. And I have briefed and litigated these statutes and principles, in every court in this state up to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. And I can't tell you how vehemently I disagree with the idea that the vacancy policy, for example, does not infringe on internal control and that a court would not find that. That being said, what I would like to come back to are some of the principles that he shared having to do with communication and the importance of everyone working together within a budget. I worry that, well, and I shouldn't say that because that's my own view and not necessarily that of the state's attorney. It is certainly necessary that the board and the elected officials work together to prepare a budget that is both funding the office as the county is authorized to do, and also within the financial constraints of the taxing authority and the other obligations of the county. However, I do believe that the individual offices with internal control over things like employment would have serious issues with the idea that the county board could determine after a set period of time whether or not unfilled positions should still exist. And that's what we were asked to share with you. And that is what we have done. I want to make clear, I don't want to, offend or disparage. I would not be doing my job if I didn't share with you all how strongly we disagree with some of those positions.
Well, thank you, Ms. Brady. I guess more specifically than what I'm looking at is I understand that you have a confrontational position with respect to the vacant positions resolution. Is that correct?
I don't know if I would characterize it as confrontational. We disagree that it's legal.
All right, then, but you don't agree that it is proper or legally correct?
With respect to the elected officials, we do not agree that the county could subject elected officials to those types of procedures. That's right.
Okay. I understand that. We actually have two resolutions we're working
Yeah,
on.
we're talking.
So with respect to the original resolution 23-740, what is your legal opinion and or position on that resolution?
Within, as set forth within the memo that the state's attorney shared yesterday, there are some issues with respect to budget submittal. And I believe the ability to change budgeting mid-year was also problematic with respect to the, that may be problematic with respect to the county departments as well, but that probably would be a problem with respect to the elected officials as well. However, I understand that portion has already passed. It's the vacancy policy that is on the floor presently. No, we're still
So
on the first-
resolution 740 or 470 or 740 has passed, you're saying?
Wasn't
No.
there a vote taken? Okay.
On the floor right now.
Okay, so
Passing right
my
now.
mistake. So that would be our response on the budget policies.
So your response on resolution 740, the budget policy right now is twofold. You have two concerns?
As you ask me, as I stand here right now, I would have to defer to the state's attorney's memo from yesterday specifically, but there are issues largely relating to internal control throughout that we would be happy to, parse out or work with somebody separately, but there are concerns with both policies.
And I think that's very fair to have those concerns, and I think we need to address those concerns and, have a full vetting of that so that we as county board members understand whether or not the positions of the state's attorney's office are more valid than, say, the finance director's positions. I don't know which one's right or which one's wrong, but I don't have enough information in this resolution to vote on it. I mean, I've got two opinions. And at this point, I don't feel comfortable saying, well, Ralph is right or Aaron's right. I just don't know. I need more time to review it. And my thought is we have another finance meeting next Wednesday, I believe. Is there some way we could come to some kind of a resolution on the issues that the state's attorney's office has with this resolution so that we can make appropriate changes and then vote on it next Wednesday? In other words, maybe tabling this resolution today until next Wednesday and a vote on it at that time.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard, for your comments. We certainly, after having two meetings, several meetings that the board members of the Finance Committee met with, we asked Mr. Shepro to please comment on just the legal ramification, your legal opinion of this. And it was with absolute will and desire to get the opinion of the state's attorneys on this. And that was said very early on during the early meetings, and that continued all through. So we value this opinion. I think it's important that we both come to an agreement where we stand. I hear from the board, both at this meeting as well as in other conversations that I've had with a variety of board members, that dipping in and not having control of the reserve fund is a problem. And having emergency purchases and changes in budget and different allocations during the year is very challenging for us, especially since we are being very sensitive to tax revenue that's coming in. It is my belief, and I hope this is shared with other board members, that without doing our due diligence to make sure that we have done a deep dive into this budget and having the opportunity to do so before and come to understanding with any kind of adjustments we could possibly make to make sure that we have real fiscal integrity with our budget throughout the year, needs to be done before we can go to any taxpayer and ask them for an increase in their tax dollars.
Could we, I don't even know how to say this. Could we take a 5-minute intermission, please?
There has been.
There
yes.
is a development that's just occurred and I can't even focus on what your words are saying. Could we just take 5 minutes for just?
Before, and I would agree with that. There has been an incident that perhaps we can share privately that has occurred. But I do believe to this point, this is an important conversation that we've had. And it has, I think at this point, perhaps we should, there's an ask for tabling it. This may be an appropriate time to table this discussion in light of the incident that has happened.
Let's take a recess.
Let's take a recess.
Let's
Yes.
recess, please.
Recess, please. 5 minutes.
Did you hear?
You hear that?
Okay.
Yeah, let's.
Sad day.
Go for me, will you? Save me a trip.
Stretching the hips. Open the quad.
Well,
Zinc into the dantian.
next week, we need to get the
Thank you.
state's attorney.
Not what I looked at. That's not what I Yeah. Yeah.
Horse stance. You guys never done horse stance?
We're having a meeting.
Horse stance, yeah. Oh, it was a half attempt. Oh, no, but when you're right. Yeah, the Chinese, they used to ride horses and wield big weapons. That's where it comes from.
Chinese people.
That's where it comes from. I mean, it's martial art. Yeah. That's where horse stance go. Mabu.
Him and I never.
I speak all languages and none.
Next Wednesday, we have finance, 9 o'clock next Wednesday,
Needed by.
We should have it.
Monday. Yeah,
All right.
48 hours before it's great.
That'll give her plenty of time.
Yep.
I'd like to bring our meeting back to order. I really feel that the feeling is that we need to table this.
I think there's a motion on the floor from Mr.
Leonard moves to table both resolutions today to our meeting next Wednesday at 9 a.m.
Do we have a second?
Or can we just refer it to that meeting instead of tabling? Because then it just goes.
Yeah.
Postponing, I mean, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, postpone.
Yeah,
Tabling is the wrong term. Yeah.
Yeah,
let's
it's a little different.
Postpone, yes.
I have a question. Would we be getting more information prior to that?
Statement. We, each of us on the finance committee needs to submit to Madam Chairman's office our questions of what we feel is necessary for us to go forward. What do we need? So that we can make our decisions. So I think that we need to do this, get a discussion between the state's attorney and our finance executives. And we need to iron these things out. I think your questions, you have doubts, Ms. Lewis has doubts. I'm sure we all have questions. So I think we get those questions to Jane. And
In
by
24
Monday at the latest, okay?
Could we get the questions into Jane within 24 hours and then get a response?
I don't have time.
Okay, well, we got,
Morning.
let's say we got the weekend and we'll have Monday morning.
Monday by noon, would that give everybody?
But I just can't,
Oh, the reason why, Miss Juby, I think this is suggested, if the next finance committee, if I may, is on Wednesday, we have to make sure that why we all need time to address, we also need to give the state's attorney time to respond.
We need to have a policy for how to go through ahead with our budget process.
I understand that. I just, given the fact that I have 2 special meetings today that
Yes,
I have to attend and I have things going on tomorrow, I do not have the time to submit
Monday
those.
morning?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll shoot them off Saturday afternoon, but I cannot get them
Oh,
to you
no,
tomorrow.
by Monday,
Yeah.
I think well, we have state's attorney representation here.
Well, I think
That give you enough time?
it'll be passed on. I guess it's, I don't know that the state's attorney can guarantee without knowing what the questions are, how soon they will be able to answer that.
And I think that's correct. I think we will look at the questions that are asked and we will try to promptly give you a timeline of when we can provide those answers. If it's relatively simple questions, it'll be a quick turnaround, but if it's relatively complicated legal analysis, we will let you know that.
I don't know if there's any really argument with with what we want to do from a budget planning process. I think it's more concerned with the employee or the individuals. So I think it's necessary for us to get a budget process approved. What we approve certainly can be changed. The same as we create.
But we are all in a critical deadline. Oh, could we just have Mr. Sarbo come up and just remind the board when the process, and I think Mr. Sanchez has got a question.
Consensus, yes.
I think June 2nd was the new date for the kickoff, the budget kickoff. if That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, they just sent an email about that. I just wanted to comment, if knowing that sometimes it does take a little time for the state's attorney to appropriately respond to inquiries. I would be interested at next week at finance, if we don't have all those questions answered, to just forward it on to executive, allow them that time to respond, and we still have this resolution going along the track instead of waiting another month, which we don't have as far as the budget goes. So just wanted to put that out there in case we don't have what we need by Wednesday. I think we should forward it to executive anyway.
I agree.
So
100%. We have a motion on the floor. Oh, Ralph did, oh, we got the date and everything, so we're all right. We have a motion on the floor to postpone until our next meeting.
Postpone until next Wednesday at
Wednesday.
9 AM, the
finance.
Finance Committee.
Any other discussion?
We need a second
I'll
on that.
second.
Yeah, we do have a discussion.
Okay.
Seconds.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby? Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez?
Is yes?
Burgess?
Yes.
Tepe?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Berman?
Berman, yes.
They both are postponed.
So we'll, that includes item A and B. But I have no old business. Any old business? I have no further
You don't-
comments.
Motion to adjourn?
You don't want to adjourn, do you?
Motion adjourned.
Second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We're back here at 3:30.